Hey everybody, John Ponick with the Mojave Valley Daily News. This is our regular Thursday at 4 o'clock edition of Valley Voices. I don't need to introduce this guy, so let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay.
How you doing, Mr. Mayor?
Good, John.
Thank you for coming back. Last time, it was about a month ago, we had you in here. We answered a bunch of questions. We have a bunch more that we didn't get to, so we're going to try and plow through those today, along with I got some new stuff to ask you, too.
Wonderful. Let's go for it.
Or we could just talk about the old farts ride.
Yeah, let's talk about the old farts ride.
All right, so we had a motorcycle ride.
Yeah. 13th annual.
13th annual. It was so much fun. This time the issue was wind, not heat or cold. It was wind this time. So
Yeah, which we've had before. I remember that one. I don't remember if you were on that
I
one.
was.
We were down to Yuma.
yes, and we went past the sand dunes there.
Yeah, and we were at a 45-degree angle, and I thought my tank was going to be sandblasted clean when we pulled over.
You know what? That I can paint. It was my face that was being sandblasted that I had issues with. All right, let's get on to some of this stuff. So right off the bat, I want to ask you about John Meading. I think a lot of us in the community have heard his name, don't really know a whole lot about him. He hasn't been elected yet, but if you can kind of go over the process. He was the top ranked person coming out of the recommendation committee.
Correct.
Okay, so what can you tell us about him?
All right. Well, first off, it all started when Mark Clark, who was on city council, took the job as the utilities director for the city. So we had a vacancy on the city council. And when Mickey McClure died several years ago, we set up a process to be a little more transparent, and we used that same process during this selection period. All of the city council people got to nominate one person to sit on a nomination selection committee, and I got to nominate two, so we would have an odd number. And so we had 7 people that were actually interviewing the candidates, and we had 10 candidates that interviewed for the job or applied for the job. And it was on Monday. They met all day long. It was about 5.5 hours. That can be watched online if anybody is interested. Go to the city's website under council agendas, and you can see the video and you can watch it for yourself. But all the candidates are there, and John Meading was the first candidate up. And it was a real interesting process. But John came out on top. He was the number one choice of all 7 committee members.
Oh, wow.
And on a ranked score, he scored close to 92 or 91, and the next closest person was in the high 70s. So he was clearly the top choice of the people who went through the nomination process.
And he's a architect or
No, he's a mechanical engineer.
Engineer. Okay.
I've known John forever. He came to town in 1996 when Tri-State Refuse was the company that was got the contract for the city trash collection, and he bought into part ownership with that. So John used to run the dump, and then somebody else in the company, ran the collection system. So he was a partner in that whole process. And then when they sold to one of the other subsequent companies, he then went to work as his own business. And then he went to work for Laren Engineering. John was involved in the big Ferris wheel in Las Vegas. That was one of the projects that he worked on.
Oh, wow.
And now he's the facilities director for Mojave County. And he was just responsible for the brand new Superior Courthouse in Kingman. So he comes to the city council with tremendous abilities and skills and connections. So if he is the choice of the city council when we vote next Tuesday, I think he will be a great addition to our city council.
It sounds like, losing Mark Clark off of there is a big blow. So having a professional like him come in with his experience and everything sounds like it's going to be a good deal if he ends up being the guy.
If he ends up being the guy, and I can't talk about that because then I might violate the open meeting laws.
Yes, I get that. All right. Thoughts on the COVID money. So we had a story a couple days ago about the COVID money. It's 41 point something million that the Board of Supervisors have. There seems to be some sort of confusion as to what they can actually use it for. We laid out some things that you can for sure, Sam Elters laid out that you can for sure use it for, and some things that you for sure cannot use it for. Hildy, I guess, had a question about sending out to nonprofits.
Right.
and that, what would you like to see it used for? And your cut of it is, you said like 14 million, right around 14 million?
For the second round of stimulus, we're looking at about approximately 14 million, and that went up from the 9.8 million that we originally told. So, this is so confusing. The first round of stimulus, I think we got like $4.7 million, and that was easy. The federal government just said that your police, your fire department, every one of those people and your dispatchers and all of that are going to be working on something related to COVID. So you could just submit your police budget, your fire department budget, and here fire department budget is separate from the city. But it was simple. We just basically took the money and substituted the federal money with what would have been general fund money. So we ended up with an extra $4.7 million in our budget this year just for that stimulus alone. Mm-hmm. But now this next round is more complicated. The first time they came out with, it was 151 pages of how you could spend the money.
Oh my God.
151 pages. Thank you,
that's why it took so
bureaucrats
long
in
for us to get
Washington.
it. Yeah, right.
Well, now they came out with a condensed version, and it was only like 18 pages, but we're all still scratching our heads as to what we can do. So it's difficult to decide in how you play the game, and so anyway, our city staff is confident that we can spend this $14 million and we can divert some of the monies that we would have been using for general fund into other things. So now how are we going to spend that? As part of our budget process, we increased our budget from roughly, we've been doing about a $30 million a year general fund budget, and I think this year we were up to like a $38 million general fund budget. And our total budget in past has been about 90 million, and now we're up to 128 million. Mm-hmm. So we're hoping that we can get all of the federal money spent that's coming our way, and then there'll be other grant money available also. So our budget has been inflated tremendously in the hopes that we can actually get it, because we have to budget high. If we don't budget high and we get it, we can't spend it.
Well, one of the things I saw on the list from Sam Elters was water infrastructure. Is that a possibility?
On his list, or just in general?
On the list that he provided as things that you can definitely use the money for. Well, infrastructure.
Well, that's one of the things that is very clear. We know that we can spend money on water and wastewater infrastructure. So if nothing else, and I'm sure there's much more that we can do, but if it was nothing more, we are now in the process of buying EPCOR. EPCOR is in front of the Arizona Corporation Commission now, telling them that they need to spend millions of dollars to upgrade our water system, and they want the ratepayers to pay for those upgrades with increased utility prices. Well, we're soon going to take them over, and now with the federal government's stimulus money, we can probably use some of that free money to upgrade the system without putting it on the backs of our ratepayers.
Yeah, talking to Mark yesterday, we had Mark in here Mark Clark for Q&A in here yesterday, and one of the things he's working on the roadmap to this, but it sounded like the most critical thing that needs to be addressed right away is leaking problems. Mm-hmm. And that's something that money could go toward until that roadmap is put together.
Well, the stimulus money is going to be over the course of several years. We're going to get it in 2 different batches. So we'll get half of it this year, we'll get half of it next year, and then we have a longer period of time to spend it. So no, the timing is perfect.
Good.
With us taking over EPCOR and Mark doing that roadmap for the future of our water system, the timing couldn't be better.
Good. So where are we at with EPCOR? I know that the bond amount was produced.
Yeah.
You spoke yesterday with Mark about it, and he said that $80 million, once the bond is set up and sold, that's when you guys will actually take possession of EPCOR? Or of the water system, I should say.
We are now meeting with bond counsel to secure that $80 million bond, and it's not finalized yet, but it probably will be within the next week or two. And then it'll go to the city council, and we meet twice a month, and the city council will have to approve the purchase of that bond. Once the bond is purchased, then we basically agree with EPCOR, and I don't even know if the courts are involved, but we basically set, this is the date, then we're going to do the smooth transition, and then we will physically take them over.
Okay.
And we expect that will probably be done. I've been talking about 30 to 45 days, but it could be as long as 90 days.
Well, if you have to coordinate them with them and both of you land on the same date, that could be more difficult for sure.
Well, EPCOR has basically reached out and said they want to make a smooth transition, and I give them credit for that.
That's nice.
But then again, their responsibility is to provide safe, reliable drinking water to the citizens. So it doesn't matter if we do it or they do it. If there's going to be a transition, we all need to do it to make sure there's no hiccups.
Well, we do have some questions from Harvey Pryor. I'm sorry. Jeff Loya about the EPCOR thing. So some of them we've already addressed. I guess that he has understood how that works. But one of the things that he asked about is the city going to hire the employees? Have you had any preliminary stuff on that, or is that?
Let me ask you. I didn't see all of Mark's interview. Did he address that question?
He did not. He said that he's got, I think he said a dozen people that he's looking at right now, or 12 to, no, he said, I think he said 22 or 24 people that he's looking at right now to begin staffing up, but he didn't say if they were EPCOR employees or anything.
And that's a question that's been on my mind. I wanted to ask our city manager, because it was early last week, I believe it was, that we were going to meet with the EPCOR employees, and then there was going to be a second meeting with them over in the council chambers. But I never did ask to find out how that meeting went.
That's happened? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I know the meeting happened, but I don't know what the result of it was.
Okay. All right. Well, the attempt is being made to hire them, whether they want to come along and agree to terms and all that. I think we have kind of an Aaron Rodgers situation there. You know?
We were told that they had 32 employees right now working in the system, and they wanted to retain 16 of them. So the remaining 16 would be the ones that we would reach out to see if they wanted to come to work for us.
Oh, because they still have wastewater and water down in the valley as well.
They've still got the Willow Valley water and wastewater system. They've got the North Havasu system, and now they've just recently purchased the Parker system.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're still going to have a presence in our area.
Jeff, you getting any questions over there?
Not yet.
Okay, so I will move on. Here's a comment from Billy K. Billy says that you're truly a remarkable person who's perfect for the job. Please ask him to reconsider stepping down after this term. Should we have that discussion with Carla instead?
No, it's my decision. Billy, thank you for the comment, and thanks for being so kind. I don't know that I deserve all that credit, but I do work hard at the job. But it's time, and I believe in term limits. As a matter of fact, at our next city council meeting, we're going to have a workshop on term limits. So if anybody wants to attend that workshop, I believe it starts earlier, like at 4 o'clock or something.
Okay, that's on the 15th?
Next Tuesday.
Yep.
And anyway, I believe in term limits, and I was actually going to try and do a petition initiative, but then I found out that the city fathers can do it with just a city council vote, and I don't have to go out and get 1,500 signatures. So we'll see how the city council reacts to it, but I believe in term limits. Lord knows if we had term limits in Washington, D.C., perhaps our country wouldn't be in the shape it is in right now.
Your mouth to God's ears.
Yeah. So anyway, if you believe in term limits, you should believe in it all the way down the line. So after 8 years here, I think that's long enough. Although I am recommending what I'm recommending, and it's certainly open for discussion for anybody who wants to do input or show up at that meeting. 8 years in one position, and no more than 8 years in one position, and an additional 4 years in the other. So even if the term limits would have applied to me and it was approved the way I'm suggesting it, then I would still be eligible to run for city council for another 4 years, but not 12 years as mayor. So, and anyway, and then others are saying 12 years, others are saying 8 years. So it'll be interesting what the citizen input is on that and what actually makes it to the ballot if it gets that far.
Okay. We talked about this, and I don't know that you have any input on it, but if you can tell them that you have no input on it.
I have no input on it.
Our Ren is asking about if the hospital's decision to close the OB unit, the obstetrician and birthing, is that what it stands for? Unit is going to be addressed. Obviously.
No, what happens at the hospital, as far as what they do at the hospital, is nothing that the city council is involved with at all. Now, obviously, during the whole COVID process, we were intimately involved as to whether or not they were being overrun, and many of the decisions that I and the city council made during the COVID situation was based upon that information. But when talking about shutting down an OB unit, no, that's not something that we have any involvement in.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm going to be discussing, hopefully, with Toby here one of these days. I think Tammy Ursenbach is in next week. Maybe we got some, not necessarily in the hospital, but clinics and that can take over that part of it. I mean, do you know of any OB-GYN?
No,
It's a hard word for me. Clinics that are outside of the hospital?
No, I don't. I'm not that familiar with the medical community.
Okay. All right, well, I'll discuss that with them then. I'm trying to get the Vincent Guarisco, the voters have spoken, take it. I can't get that going. All right.
It was interesting, though, today we had a ribbon cutting for the new helicopters that the hospital is now going to be using. Their Care Flight service, they just invested over $40 million in new helicopters, and I actually got a chance to fly in it after the ribbon cutting this morning.
Saw that.
I didn't expect that my day was going to include a helicopter flight, from the hospital to the dam and back, but that was really interesting.
It's nice having a helicopter flight where you don't have to wear your steel buckets and be prepared to jump out.
Yeah. Although I never jumped out of a helicopter, but
You were
airborne.
Airborne.
Yeah, I just jumped out of planes.
You
that's
jumped
all.
out of planes. You didn't have the rope to rappel down or any of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I never landed in one of those planes. Always ended up with a parachute on my back.
Here's an interesting question from Holly Carter. I would like to see more trees, not palm trees. Shade tree would be better with benches under them. That way someone taking a walk on one of the many trails in town to have a place to sit and watch, look at the river, wildlife, people watch. Have you ever had any kind of discussion about that, whether it's down on the beach?
No,
or?
absolutely. Absolutely. And, well, I was involved with all of the trees at Davis Camp. Those were done back in the 80s when I got grant money, and that was a project where I saved so much money on other things that we were doing. The only thing that I had left to spend grant money on was landscaping, so I think I tripled the budget for the trees. So we did the forest of palm trees down there, and I like the tropical feel that's there now, but it's, I can agree that it's not good for shade. Now, we've talked about doing the same thing at the beaches at Community Park. Now, the problem with that, though, is that if you just plant a shade tree, you might have to water it. Palm trees, if you plant them along the water's edge, there's no maintenance involved as far as watering, they grow. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, we don't have a complete master plan as to what we're going to do there. So the trees that we planted down there now, we got them at a discount price from a nursery here that was going out of business. But if the need arises that we need to move those palm trees, we can. If you plant a shade tree there, you will not be able to move it. So that was one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing on the beaches at Community Park.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you know what they're planning on doing over at the new park there at Marina? Can't think of the name of it. Gary Keith Park, with their walking trails and benches and all that. Are they put trees in over there?
I don't know what they have in the way of landscaping there.
Okay. All right. Here's another interesting one. Sherry Engel asks, what about these cars in neighborhoods? Can't get out of your driveway, abandoned cars and empty lots, people parking on the street. Is that something where, does that fall under the nuisance law? Is that just you have to deal with it as long as there's no HOA or something?
Well, parking on the street is legal, But parking a car on your property, visible, from the street, if it's not operating and it's not registered, we can contact the owner and say that you need to either garage it or get it out of sight or do something, otherwise it can be a code violation. And we do that all the time.
But if you are backing out of your driveway and people are parked legally, registered and everything else all the way down the street, you're just having a hard time backing out, there's really nothing that can be done there.
There's nothing that can be done. And some of those streets in Riviera, they're really narrow streets with narrow easements on the side, and then they've got their chain link fences. So that's a problem, but that's not something that we can do anything about. You're free to park on this, off the street. But if they have a problem, they can call our code enforcement and ask if that's something that we can get involved
Something
with.
they can address.
Right.
Because that's something that could always be changed if there is a big enough need.
If there is, but also in some of those instances, it's really difficult to make a change because parking on those small lots in the Riviera area is so difficult to start out with.
They're squished into that little spot.
And that's a good point, though, too. As a matter of fact, we had a Government Affairs Committee meeting this morning, and the subject came up about code infractions. The city has got an app, it's called Go Request, and I encourage anybody to go to your app store and just go to the app, it's Go Request. And if you see a violation, if you see a pothole, or if you see something that really troubles you, if you see graffiti, it's a real simple app. You just basically open it up. It asks you, what's your complaint? And there's a whole list, code enforcement or police department or whatever else. You just click on whatever one it is you want. You take a picture of it, and you send it.
Whoa.
And the picture basically is identified on Google Maps exactly where the address is at, so you don't even have to put an address or anything else. I use it all the time. When I see a pothole or I see graffiti or anything of the sort, I use it all the time, and I wish more citizens would do that because I think our community would be better off with a little community involvement by keeping us informed of things that they see are wrong.
Sounds good. That perfectly takes us into the next question here. Greg Torres asked, are we ever going to fix all the potholes in the road? Is that something, can you ever fix all the potholes?
I don't think so.
Is that you fix this one and then next week one popped up over here?
And I guess that comment surprises me because I think we're doing a damn good job with the road crews that we've got now. When I became mayor, that we were asking voters to approve a $35 million bond to fix the roads in our town, and that was defeated by over 60% of the voters. Since that time, we've come up with a plan where we basically resurface every road in town once every 5 years, and I think we've done a good job of it. So when people now start talking about potholes, I guess do your Go Request and
Take a picture of it,
Take a
Greg.
picture of it. Now, when I come to work in the morning, I've got a couple of potholes on the side of the road just off the pavement, and I question whether or not they should be filled in, but I'm ready to go out there with my own bucket and pail and just fill them in myself and not bother the road department with it.
If you do, please give me a call. I'm going to send Jeff out there to watch you.
Are we going to video it live?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to narrate it
I
too
got
while
you.
he's
Well,
doing
then I
it.
don't want to do it because it should be a city function, but it's not that difficult. For the homeowner, if you're out there and you see the damn thing, it's like just take a bucket of sand and go fill the thing in. If it's off, if it's between the asphalt and the dirt.
Larry Kendrick has asked, has the city voiced its displeasure with ADOT about the median issue? I know that you have, but just for the people that haven't heard.
I get more complaints about the medians south of town, not so much, the north side. When ADOT has a special pot of money for safety, and the way they use this money for safety, they believe that medians are going to cut down on the accidents. And that's all they can spend it on. So they originally came out and wanted to do the roundabout down on Aztec and another one on Camp Mojave. At the same time, though, they were talking about the medians along that whole stretch of land. We had all kinds of public hearings, and everybody was welcome to attend, and I used most of my political capital on doing away with the roundabouts, and I didn't want to get in the medians because that was outside the city limits. Well, they put the medians in, and now we're dealing with it. and has it improved safety? I called Doug Schuster a few weeks back and I said, do you have any statistics on whether or not accidents have been reduced? And he said, well, that's a DPS thing. So he called DPS, and basically the number of accidents hasn't changed at all from prior to the medians being put in. So I don't know. I'm very unhappy with them, as is everybody else. And I think they've made a few foolish mistakes by not putting turning lanes on some of the more critical roads so that you could actually do a U-turn without going down some sort of a dirt road and trying to do a U-turn in the middle of a dirt road.
Have you heard anything from any of the fire department or rescue or any of those people about trying to get over there, and I got to go up and U-turn or run over the median or anything?
The only story I heard was that the fire department was going down the northbound lane southbound because traffic was backed up so bad and they couldn't get around the southbound lanes. So I don't know how prevalent that is.
Maybe we need to set up a time and get the Fort Mojave or Mojave Valley. Fort Mojave, I guess, doesn't get down to Mojave Valley. Get them in here.
ADOT wants to put them through all of Bullhead City, though. And we said, well, no, we're going to object, and we'll fight you like we fought the roundabout. But if you want to put them in, then go ahead and put them in from the post office and Old Bullhead all the way up to the bridge, because there's no turning movements there to speak of. And then we also allowed them to put them in south of the Parkway up to basically Corwin, because there wasn't much to go in there. But now they want us to approve putting them in through Old Bullhead, and we're fighting them every step of the way, almost daily. It's awful. But the ADOT district director, the district engineer, he was housed out of Prescott, Alvin Stump. He just took a job someplace else in the state. So we're looking forward to hopefully the next person that takes his place might have a little bit of a different attitude towards medians.
Maybe he's not so high on medians and roundabouts.
Yeah.
That would be nice. We got a bunch of questions here from Harvey Pryor, but I think we addressed almost all of them, if not all of them.
And Harvey, I've told you, when you have questions, by all means, give me a call. You've got my cell phone number, and I'd be happy to address those in more depth with you personally.
Cindy Cockrell asked about a grocery store on the Parkway. Any ideas on that?
Well, everybody's been crying for a grocery store on the Parkway, but that's not something the city has any involvement with except approving it when they come and propose it. So, no.
If that would be more a economic development department thing, there's commercial property up on the Parkway, correct?
Yes, there is. And it, and now off of Laughlin Ranch Boulevard, that whole boulevard it's prime for a grocery store.
But that's still part of the BLM swap, right?
No, Laughlin Ranch Boulevard, that's all privately owned now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. How is the BLM
Well,
swap?
except when you get all the way down to Section 12.
The last little bit.
Yeah, that last little bit where it comes down off the hill.
Okay. I thought that all the way up the road, that was
Oh, no,
BLM.
that's all private. And we're hoping that someday you might see some major shopping centers and things along there, including a grocery store.
Okay. How is the BLM swap coming? I know that coronavirus probably put a big damper on that, huh?
How long does it take a guy from the BLM to appraise the property? I mean, we've been waiting for probably a year and a half now, so the wheels of federal government move slow. It's my understanding that the federal government basically did not allow any of their employees to come to work. They all worked from home, but we're still waiting, and nobody is more frustrated than me about that. But the Don Laughlin Ranch itself is up for sale. If anybody wants a bomb-proof shelter with 12-foot, 1-foot thick steel doors, or 12-foot wide, 1-foot steel doors, along with the 2-story log cabin and 80 acres of land up by the Sleeping Princess, that closes Monday after next at 4 o'clock. Minimum bid is $1.44 million.
That's not a bad price.
There
It
you
also
go,
has a private lake for fishing.
Also
stocked
has a
it.
private lake for fishing.
All right,
It's a
so we
pretty good
need
price.
wealthy conspiracy theorists or
Or-
zombie apocalypse people, wealthy,
Yeah.
any of those.
Okay.
Reach out.
Well, with the way the federal government is going now, there's an awful lot of people who say that we're one
We're
step
gonna need
away
it.
from it. So if you're serious about hunkering down, there's no better property to buy than this one.
Sounds awesome. All right, we have one last question here. Andy Felderbush would like you to show your Super Bowl rings. I see you don't have them here today.
I left them at home.
Oh,
I'll
Tom.
probably keep them in the safe.
Yeah. Got to keep those safe.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you
That's
coming
it?
down.
We're already done?
Yep, we are wrapped up. We're at a half hour. We're at
Oh,
31
my
minutes, actually.
goodness.
We're over.
Don't worry, Mayor. We'll get you back again.
We're gonna have to pay overtime, yes.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try and get the mayor down here once a month to kind of give us an idea of what's going on, answer your questions, maybe let us know what's going on with city council, some decisions that they made, all the way up until he retires.
About another year and a half.
Holding you to it.
Then we'll have him come in and then he can talk about the new mayor and the new city council and where they're making mistakes.
Okay.
Will that
No,
work?
no. That's not
Well,
gonna
I
happen.
would have done.
No.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We have the Daily Dose again tomorrow morning at 7:30. Please tune in for that. And I don't know off the top of my head who's coming in next week.
Surprise, surprise.
Isn't it Todd Levitt next
Levitt,
week?
yep.
Next week. Todd Levitt's doing Valley Voices, so
TODD.
we will be discussing real estate next week. I'm not sure who's on Q&A. Still working on that. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow.
Cindy says thank you, Mayor, for all you do.
Cindy Frizzell?
Yes.
Thanks, Cindy. Love you too.